Hello, I'm Howard Spence. I'm Eaton County Commissioner representing citizens and residents in Delta Township, Michigan. And I am wanting to share with you today some information that I received this past Wednesday, March 14th, when I attended the 2018 Solutions Summit for Michigan, Michigan, a great place to live and good government, which was sponsored by the Bridge Michigan Corporation, the Center for Michigan. This is a nonprofit, nonpartisan think tank which focuses on public policy issues and analyses of government processes to make sure that the people of the state of Michigan are well informed on what's going on in their government and issues that need to be addressed. And this day-long summit consisted of several panels of experts who shared a lot of information with the 200 to 300 people in attendance. And in particular, I wanted to share with you just some short pieces of video which I took on my cell phone camera from the panel, which was entitled Restoring Trust, Redistricting, Campaign Finance, the Legislature, and the Freedom of Information Act. And in particular, the segments that I'm going to be showing you deal with redistricting. And as many of you know, at this time, looking forward to the November 2018 election, it appears that we're going to have a citizen initiative or ballot proposal on this 2018 ballot, which would amend our Constitution, our laws, so that the way that we redistrict and set up our congressional and other state office districts would be changed. At the present time, the legislature, in conjunction with the governor's office, make proposals which the Supreme Court implements. The ballot proposal that we're looking at for this fall in the general election would change that by establishing an independent body or commission that would actually set the boundaries in a redistricting process. So I wanted to share that with you. And in particular, two of the members of this panel dealt with this topic for approximately a total of 10 or 15 minutes, which is the video that I'm going to share with you shortly. And those two people were Katie Fahey, who is the president and treasurer of Voters Not Politicians, and Jeff Timmer, who is a managing partner in Two Rivers Public Affairs. Ms. Fahey, in her role, worked with 5,000 members of her organization who were volunteers to go out and collect over 400,000 signatures necessary to get this matter before the general electorate in the fall as a ballot initiative. And she and her volunteer group accomplished the obtaining these 400 plus thousand signatures in less than 4 months. So that indicates that there's a lot of enthusiasm and willingness among residents in our state to deal with this issue of should we be changing our redistricting system so that instead of the politicians who have a vested interest in how the districts are set up, making those decisions, an independent commission would do that. And there are pros and cons, and obviously Ms. Fahey presents the pros. And as a protagonist, Mr. Timmer presents the negatives. Mr. Timmer, who is a well-known representative of Republican interests in the state of Michigan, also is an expert in the issue of redistricting, and he advocates for the position that the citizen initiative should not be passed, that things are just fine the way they are. And what is perhaps particularly interesting is that he raises a number of litigation issues that would likely arise if the ballot proposal as it has been presented is actually enacted by citizen initiative. So I invite you to listen to the video that I captured and am sharing with you now from the Bridge, Michigan Summit, and discuss it with your friends. Make your own decisions about this particular issue, and perhaps gain a better understanding of what's at stake and what may be the issues and problems arising from this particular ballot initiative. And above all, I would advocate and encourage you, each and every one, to make sure that your voice is heard. Get out, vote what you think is in the best interests of your community, your state, and your family. So I hope this is worthwhile for you. The total is about 10 or 15 minutes beyond this intro.
All right, hi, I'm Katie Fahey with Voters Not Politicians. For anybody who's not familiar, we're the ballot initiative to end partisan gerrymandering in Michigan by 2018. Part of creating our proposal, we went around and did 33 town halls in 33 days, started up in Marquette, went everywhere, including online. And we asked people, here's the current redistricting process, and what do you think would make a good solution? We had a really long survey, asked who should draw the lines, what should the criteria be, and what consistently rose to the top, no matter where we were in the state, was transparency. That people are tired of being locked out of the process. They're tired of just having to deal with decisions that are made behind closed doors with politicians trading favors to one another. And like I said, it was consistent across the state, and really, I think is a huge frustration. We had to gather petitions as well to make sure that we could qualify for the 2018 ballot. And when we were talking to people across the state, showing them the redistricting maps, you hear the consistent message that people are frustrated. They think politicians are crooked and corrupt. They feel like they're locked out of the process, like their voices aren't heard, like decisions aren't made based on them or their community's needs. We had one of the fastest signature gathering efforts in Michigan. We got to finish 2 months early out of our 180 days, and had to tell people, please stop signing, we don't have enough money to verify them. But I think that just really speaks to the hunger that's out there and how frustrated people really are with the current status quo and how much they want, to change it and to have a system you can trust again, and really make sure that they're part of those decisions.
How do you think your proposal would change things?
Yeah, great. So as I mentioned, we did those town halls to really see what the people of Michigan wanted, but the other part of making sure we were creating a solution that was custom made for Michigan that would actually work, would actually help change things, was doing a really thorough analysis of what is happening in other states. What happens currently in Michigan, as well as about 30 other states in the United States, is our congressional members, our state House, state Senate, they really draw their own voting district lines. So they get to choose which neighborhoods, which communities, which voters they'd like to have incorporated so that they can be your representative. The governor gets a veto on this process. There's a couple hearings that are held, but really it's whichever political party happens to have a majority ends up drawing the lines. Favors are traded back and forth. A big long list of census tracts are kind of put into and introduced and then adopted really quickly. There's quick revisions. In other states, there have been news reports of one political party or another bunkering themselves in, hiding in a hotel, drawing these maps and then coming to rush them in. The problem with that is these are decisions these lines are drawn once every 10 years. And so they will affect the next 10 years worth of elections. And obviously in politics, if you can provide yourself an advantage that makes it easier to win your election, even if it's maybe going against the will of the people, you're going to provide that to yourself. Elections cost a lot of money, and you want to make sure that you are able to win easier. There's a couple rules that are suggestions, but because a lot of this is done not in a transparent process, we don't know the criteria that's ended up being used for those lines that are being drawn. It makes it really hard to bring a lawsuit or to say that you think something suspicious is going on or that maybe something illegal has been happening. Right now across the country you'll see Supreme Court cases. We should be hearing some things about partisan gerrymandering there. So really, it's a closed-door process done by politicians who probably have the worst conflicts of interest because they can find where their opponents are and draw them out of the district 3 months before the election. And is a process that ends up impacting communities and how all of us as individual Michiganders can advocate for the changes we want to see happening in Lansing and in Washington. So when we asked people, what would you like instead? They came up with an independent citizens redistricting commission, meaning that there'll be a panel of 13 people who will be from across the state, from different backgrounds, and from different political beliefs. With the current makeup of how we vote, it'll include 4 Republican identified Michigan voters, 4 Democrat identified Michigan voters, and then 5 independent or third party voters. Will come together to listen. They will travel the state and hear from communities how communities would like to be represented. What do you think of when you think of your community? Maybe it's your school districts. Maybe it is your chamber of commerce or your local community organization that might not exactly follow a city or boundary or county line, but you still think of, when I think of Grand Rapids, I think of this, that's Darking Cross. And that'll be taken into account as well as a strong set of rules that help guide this commission on how to draw these lines based on equal population, voting rights, respecting the city county boundaries, and trying to have them relatively compact so that we can have actual representation. It'll be done in a completely transparent way where people are actually invited to the meetings, everything's recorded, put it on our website. What we've seen in other states that have enacted something like this is people start trusting the government again. They actually wait in lines for hours to try and get their voices heard because they've never been asked their opinion on how their congressional districts are drawn. I know we'll be probably going back and forth a little bit, but one story from another state that did this is all of the districts were vertical at the top of the state, and all the congressional districts, and all the north-south vertical, California, where there was the Democrats were very heavily gerrymandering the state, and the people are sick of it and wanted to have a fair system. So at the top of California, and you have all these congressional districts that are vertical. The first thing that they went and asked when they asked people, how do you want this representation to look? They said, can you please draw the districts actually a little more horizontal? Because our only well-funded roads go north and south and follow these congressional districts. So that a congressional member can get funding for that. And they actually go up into Oregon and drive the west-east highways and then come back down into California because the roads are so bad going east and west. So those kinds of things, by just getting different people and different voices, opinions, these things that impact business, our daily lives, opening up that table and inviting people to it can have a really huge impact.
Is by Democrats, for Democrats, that it's going to basically gerrymander in favor of Democrats. And for Jeff, I wanted to see if you could respond to maybe the question of, is Republicans' fear about this issue a fear of losing power and less of a fear of the politics that you were describing? So maybe Katie, you could start off.
Sure. Just directly answering that question, no. This is not borne by Democrats. I personally am not a Democrat, and I founded it through a Facebook post. This is truly about how do we create a solution that is going to affect the next 50, 60, 70 years of elections. It requires a solution that is representative of the state so that the people at the time, no matter if they're alive in 20 or 30 years drawing these lines, can actually reflect where the state is at. We don't even know what political parties will exist in 40 years. Some of us think we do, but I'm excited to see where it goes. I think what's interesting is that one of the attacks is that the demographics would actually match the real people of our state. To me, I'm not scared of the actual people of our state. I think they're really wonderful, and by traveling across the state, meeting them, talking to them, I think they're extremely thoughtful about politics and what it means to be representative, what it means to serve your state by going around and listening. I think the documentary much kind of reflects that. People want to talk and listen and think about these things. The process is, you can read the constitutional language because it's transparent. The great thing about once you actually pull back that curtain and people are invited to watch, invited to participate, invited to look up information on who these people are who will be drawing the lines, you actually get people acting better. They're accountable now to thousands of people who are watching them do this job. They're actually able to give input instead of just having to deal with the consequence after. And so if you look at the way, in the actual constitutional language, it directly says that one political party or incumbent cannot be favored or disfavored for drawing these lines. It is directly in the constitutional language. So if any of that were to happen, it could very easily have a lawsuit and the lines would be changed based on that. But yeah.
Okay, thanks, Katie.
No problem.
If I was just listening to what Katie said and didn't know about the process, it would sound good. In Michigan, we have the legislature and the governor do not have jurisdiction over redistricting, though they execute it. The Supreme Court of the state has control over redistricting, and they have established through the 1963 Constitution and through case law since that we have guidelines and boundaries when it comes to what can be done with redistricting. And those boundaries are equal population, and those boundaries are counties, and those boundaries are cities and townships. And doing as little harm to those political jurisdictions on which the state and state law and government is based, and that's what controls redistricting. And it's not it's such a secretive process. It is a legislative process the way it's executed. But it's not that nobody can know what's going on, and it's not that they can't even bring lawsuits, because there are plenty of lawsuits that have been brought over the years. The current process aside, the proposal that's before us, Katie mentioned the 13 people, that if this proposal were to make the ballot and pass, the morass of lawsuits that will stem and the uncertainty that will arise from this are just utterly staggering. Because the proposal says that the 13 people have to be representative of the demographics of Michigan. So what that means is you have to actually apply demographics. That means of the 13, only 4 can have bachelor's degrees. 2 or 3 more could have attended college. 9 of them would be Caucasian, 3 or 4 would be African American, the remaining would be Latino or some other race. We would have to have a certain number above levels of income, a certain number below the poverty line. The criteria for how these people will be selected are endless and impossible to implement. And they're going to result in lawsuits that they weren't implemented correctly. We're going to find that there's more politics, more bare knuckles politics involved in the redistricting process if this were to pass than what has happened before. For instance, the 13 people will be selected from, randomly selected according to the proposal, 10,000 voters that are selected at random by the Secretary of State. You know what's going to happen with those 10,000 people is there's immediately going to be a Freedom of Information Act request filed by a whole lot of interest groups, Republicans, Democrats, and a whole lot of others, wondering who those 10,000 people are, and making sure that they identify these people and do as much background check on these people as possible and get them to fill out their questionnaire to apply to be part of this redistricting panel if they fit their idea of somebody they want on that ultimate panel of 13 people. You're going to see lobbying and politics and payoffs and number of things organizing, and it's going to bring so much politics, so much money, so much potential corruption into the process that you might not like. The fact that politics has politics involved in it is still, shocking to a lot of people. But the level of politics and the level of corruption or potential corruption beyond politics, just we're going to see things. What I said in my opening statement was that the intent to fix problems never does, and it exacerbates the problems they're attempting to fix, and this is a clear example of that. Testified for this, have a wonderful recourse existing today to do exactly what she's talking about, and that's run for office. The people that are involved in this are the people that everyone in this room and everybody in the state votes for as the representatives in the legislature and as the governor. Those people are selected based on where they live. They vote for their people whether it's to go vote on tax policy, education policy, or every 10 years selecting the districts. There is a recourse, and it's